up, y'all? Good afternoon. Today I wanted to talk to you about fuel. I think a lot of people online and even on the channel, they'll be like, well, if there's a predator, then they don't care what they kill and eat, for instance. But they do. And that's my point. I think you're kind of like, for somebody to say that all fuel's the same and all they care about is just fuel, that doesn't ring true in this situation with the narcissist. If that's the case, they wouldn't have primary and secondary and tertiary supply, and they wouldn't, hand pick, some of these individuals that they do. There is situations where when they have no fuel, then they have to get what they can get, the bottom of the barrel or whatever. But when they have choices, they pick fuel. They pick the types of people that they choose to get fuel from. And so it's kind of like a predator, for instance, even target. They may have to take what they can get, but there's also like times where, for instance, they would love to get a live carcass, but if they can't, they're going to get a dead carcass that's already laying on the ground just to survive, right? That's different types of fuel, different types of food, for instance, right? So when somebody says that it doesn't matter what kind of fuel, all fuel's the same fuel, that's not true. You're talking about somebody that is some drug addict from off the streets. Now that's fuel that is out of desperation. But even like some of these supposedly self-aware narcissist people, which I believe a couple of them because they're not trying to be good, they will talk about this, that there is certain fuels that they like, and I think that's where it depends on how they're built and what they're what they like, what they need. It's up to them. They like to have a bunch of high-end targets that are in their harem garage. That's what they build up to. They may start out with crappy supply when they're 18, 19 in their harem garage, but that's the deal. They try to get better every time. And that's when they plateau, when they meet the bar. And I'm saying that is the highest end empath type fuel that they're ever going to meet. A lot of times it's one of the chosen ones that wakes up and leaves and never comes back and never gives them a drop of their fuel, a drop of their energy and time anymore. But they do meet the bar. Everything has a bar to it. There's a point in time in your life where you're going to get the best car you ever had, and you're never going to get a better one in your however many years you're on this earth, right? There's going to be a time where you're going to make the most money you ever made in your life in 1 year. Well, that year is the bar on how much money you made, if you're never going to make more than that. And so the same thing goes for fuel for them. They're going to meet the bar, and the bar is going to come way before that they are deceased, and they're going to have to live the rest of their life trying to reach that type of comfort and comfort through that fuel, and they can't. There is premium fuel, and there is regular, or there is unleaded. Or whatever. There's Supreme, and there's stuff that runs real clean, and then there's the dirty. You're talking about a narcissist has to get fuel, then every fuel is different, and some fuel runs better in that vehicle. It runs cleaner. It makes the car run faster, and it gets more miles to the gallon, and it runs smoother. And it produces less carbon, and it costs more money. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about them reaching the bar and them getting the best fuel they've ever gotten, and they're never going to get it again if you are the bar. Yeah, fuel's fuel. I've heard that before on the channel, and I disagree. And I know that what I'm talking about is a fact. Because listen, I put a lot of hours into this stuff, so I know. I've listened to a lot of people, and I've read a lot of stuff. And just even in nature, when you base things on how things would naturally affect situations with different grades of stuff. Saying that they love you or they even, give a damn about you. But when we're talking about an object, they may see you as you're the object, but, when they can't get your object anymore and your object produced great fuel for them, and it helped them to build their army of, their fuel matrix with your fuel matrix, you fueling the whole thing and trying to help them all the time before you woke up. A successful individual while you were collapsing and being destroyed. And that's my point. My point is not to say that you should stay there or to say that your fuel is not the same as everybody else's fuel. It's different. And everybody has different types of fuel. And a lot of times who they choose for a primary source of supply, yes, they may have weaker boundaries, but usually they didn't start out that way. They were usually broke down to that point. So originally they were a high-end individual. And when they wake up, they usually become more high-end than previous. They like to break down and corrupt somebody who is good and high value, who had chinks in their armor, and allowed them, because they like the idea of them, to come in there and just totally dismantle everything good about them before they woke up. People would say, oh, you're just a pushover if you're primary supply. You're not a pushover. A lot of times you're not a pushover, but you may have liked the idea of an individual too much and you gave them too many outs. And then before you know it, you were led down this path, and one thing led to another, and you were seduced. Leads to you awakening. And so, the secondary, tertiary supplies, they can't produce like that because they would give pushback, which is a good thing. But a lot of those maybe didn't grow up in these types of families, so they didn't have, it's not fair to judge apples to apples, because if they're coming from the normalized family or the narcissistic, as the golden child or something, as another narcissist, then they're not going to put up with it. But they have reasons not to, because they're not under the generational curse or the spell that we are subtle to, at least until we wake up. And so I just wanted to clear that up, because a lot of times if a normal individual, and that's the thing too, this like codependency that they talk about online, or that we just want to help and fix them, typically that's not the case either. Typically the case is that we're pretty high end with the way we conduct life originally before we met this particular narcissist. What happens is you just, if you were dealing with a normal person, a normie, then you're going to be like, if a normie cheated on you, you break up with them. If a normie acted stupid, you would break up with them. But that's because they don't carry the spell with them, the seduction with them. And you're not trying to help a normie to fix them, because you pretty much know that doesn't work. These are things you fall trapped to based on the spell, y'all. So you're not weak, but you're subtle to the spell until you break the curse. It's not like you're a codependent and all this crap. A lot of times this codependency, yeah, you did have inklings of it, but it wasn't. I didn't have codependency to the degree that they claim. People say online that a lot of these empaths do. Now maybe some of y'all do, but I didn't have codependency issues like that. And I didn't, I've talked to a number of people that have dealt with the same thing, and they didn't have codependency issues like that. It's just, a lot of times too, here's the thing. I grew up, and a lot of people grew up like me in this situation, to where we all, a lot of us believe in God, okay? And a lot of us believe that, we want to get to heaven, and we want to know God, and we want to be good to God and good to individuals. And when the narcissist comes into our life, we have a hard time believing that individuals just don't give a damn about God. in fact, they're almost going the opposite way, and they don't care. It's like they don't even believe in a heaven or a hell. And that's another thing that makes you scratch your head and makes you sit there longer. And that's part of the spell too. I still have a hard time with that. That individuals could act like that and think that they're, I don't know, and just be at peace with it, or even injured, but don't want to fix it. You know, so that's something I wanted to touch on as well. Because that, I think, is where, we get sidetracked on the fact that we do then decide that we think we can help them understand, because we feel like there's an understanding issue because they play dumb with you. And not only do they play dumb with you, but then they act like they don't understand. That's part of it's part of the witchcraft. If you understand witchcraft and Satanism, and I just, because I heard somebody read this stuff out of a book online, a few pages of it, some of this, and so I got a little understanding. But this is how people are trained to operate in witchcraft, to play dumb and to act stupid when they're not. And I've even heard self-aware, one that I believe is a true narcissist, because they're not trying to get help. They're just gloating about it. But he even said that, they play dumb on purpose, because it's just a way to get over on you. And at the end of the day, the way that they act and operate, I don't know, I just feel like they've been taken over, I guess, because I believe that everybody would have some sort of, when you get into that level of that kind of degradation and you don't even care about heaven or hell, you're really warped. I mean, I still have a tough time trying to figure that one out. And so it's hard when you meet a case of somebody who just doesn't care about nothing but today, meaning they could die today, or they're going to die in 30, 40 years, and they're going to be doing the same thing. And you could tell by looking at them, ain't nothing going to change, especially if you spent like a decade with one of them. And you kind of feel sad for them, because, they're not going to a good place, man. And you know it. I mean, they even have to know it. I mean, they produce zero fruit. And I think when you stick in there and you want to help them, to some degree, you think they have no common sense. And that's part of the spell. And partly they do lack common sense. It's like it's weird. They have logic, but they have no common sense, which you would think those would go together, but they don't have to. It could be like, logically speaking, if I put this much fuel in this car, it should go this many miles. But, common sense would tell you to stop and get gas before then. You see what I'm saying? But they may not do that. I had to look up logic, because I'm like, logic and common sense seem like they would go together. But no, they are able to look at a situation and maybe determine certain specs. There's certain specs to a car, how fast it would go, how far it could go, and that sort of thing. But when it comes to thinking about, well, maybe you should do this so that you're safe, that you have a situation where you're safe and you won't get injured or you won't get stranded. That's common sense. And so that's where they kind of fall into getting in trouble a lot of times. And because that they operate with impulsivity and out of sight, out of mind and all that stuff, they get into a whole lot of trouble, because that's where they just lack common sense. They lack common sense, they lack creativity, and they lack love and empathy and truth, period. And so it's interesting, because everything in the Bible on the right, anatomical right, is blessed, and on the anatomical left is cursed. And it's kind of like their right brain is the side that, if it's shut off on a PET scan or an MRI, that would be the side that's shut off. And that's because that's where your love centers and your creativity centers are located, which leaves them with the left brain, which is just like logic. And it's very interesting. It's like, and if you're left-handed, please, It's not that you're cursed. It's a motif. It's a motif, okay? It's a motif that most people in this world system are going to be left-handed if they're in the controlling side of things. If they're in the Fortune 500 companies, if they're presidents, if they're artists, if they're musicians, if they're sports people, they're going to be successful more with their left-handed type stuff. It's just a motif because Satan runs this kingdom and he's related to the left side. That's why the left eye got poked out from, that's why they was covering up the left eye or whatever, because the eye brings light and light is God, but that left eye got poked out. And you know, like Christ, they threw their nets to the left side of the ship and they didn't catch anything. He told them to throw them to the right and they almost sunk the ship. The man on the anatomical right was the one that accepted him on the cross, and the one on the anatomical left denied him. On the anatomical earth, with earth being, or heaven being high north, you get the east side where the sun rises is Christ, and where it sets, the west side, is Satan, darkness. It all pertains. It's like in the Middle East, they would eat with their right hand and wipe their ass with their left hand. And all of these things pertain. They would always bless with the right hand in the Bible. And God would always grab you with it by your right hand, hold your heart in your right hand. And there would be sheep to the right and goats to the left. Everybody that did anything prosperous in the Bible was with the right hand. And there was only one time where the left hand was used, and it was because it was one of the judges. His name was Ehud, and it was because his right hand was feeble. He had to use his left hand. So it's kind of like God showing you that you're not cursed if if you're left-handed, but it's just a motif, meaning it's an ensemble. And so it's because Satan somehow fell from the left of heaven or something. It's even like the right even means right. It's also this, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey on a screw. So you want to be tight with God. And if you're left, you're loose. It's the same thing with they would call like prostitutes, they're loose, right? You don't want to be loose. And that's related to the enemy, left. Or the mark of the beast goes in the right hand or the forehead, because it's not going in the left hand, Satan's hand. It's going in the right hand to mock God, and it's going in your forehead only if you don't have a right hand, but it ain't going in the left. That's what that's to say. So there's a lot of these things in the earth, but when it comes to the narcissist, their right brain shut off, and that's not by accident. That's why they have no creativity. They have to steal it from you. They have no love. They have to steal it from you. They have no common sense. They have to steal it from you. You are their common sense. And if they wanted a way to God, it's through you, because they don't have it. They're shut down. They turned it off. And these are all the centers on the right side. So they operate in logic. And what else operates in logic? Artificial intelligence. Listen, I recorded 3 podcasts today, and this is the one I'm going to post because I didn't like the other 2. So if you're out there, give me a like, subscription, a thumbs up. Peace, we out.